All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code podcast5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Today's guest is my friend, Nyakio Greico. She is a beauty entrepreneur with 2 successful businesses. Her first beauty brand, Nyakio, that launched in 2002, and 13 Lune, which she launched with her co-founder, Patrick Herning, in 2020. Nyakio has long been an advocate for clean beauty for all skin colors, types, and needs. Using her beauty secrets that she learned from her Kenyan background and travels around the world, she successfully launched Nyakio to marketplace desperately in need of beauty products. Today, Nyakio is carried at Target stores nationwide. And in 2020, when the world was profoundly impacted by Black Lives Matter's racial justice movement, Nyakio noticed a plethora of Black-owned beauty brands finally getting due recognition from mainstream media. Yet there was no main community hub in which consumers could seek them out efficiently. Additionally, she noticed that there was a misconception that BIPOC beauty founders were only creating product for BIPOC consumers. Thus, 13 Lune launched as a community-based in allyship to highlight BIPOC founded brands in one shoppable location that do in fact make product for all people in an effort of true amplification and allyship that lasts beyond a particular time of year. It is my pleasure to invite and welcome my friend Nyakio to the podcast. You look so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, girl, I just got off a red eye. I'm like,
yes. I'm sorry, red eyes are tough.
They are brutal, but I got upgraded, so at least I got to sleep.
Okay.
And I downloaded this app called Time Shifter because I came to New York, and then I'm here till Friday, and then I go home, and then I go to Europe. So this Time Shifter app helps you avoid jet lag by staying in your circadian rhythm.
Amazing.
And so, it was like, and it gives you specific times for like caffeine, for sleep, for bright light, for low light, for no light. And so I've been trying to be really good about doing it. But normally if I have to take a red eye, I will, come in, take a nap for a couple of hours, then have some form of caffeine, take a walk,
Yeah.
So this time it was like, I looked at the app, I was like, are they kidding? It was like, sleep for, 4.5, 5 hours on the flight, wake yourself up. That didn't happen, but it was only a 5-hour flight anyway. Open the window, get the bright light, and then stay up until 10 o'clock tonight.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to see if it works because I get pretty bad jet lag. So,
well, we're just going to have to keep this part of the podcast in so that everyone listening is also getting your health tips.
Right. Time Shifter app.
Time Shifter app. I'm going to put it in the show notes then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to jump on a call after your red eye and to share about, I think, your second baby, because we first met at a spa wellness event in LA, and I learned all about Nyakio Beauty. And then since then, you've raised capital and started this amazing company, 13 Lune. And I need to hear, or 13 Lune, I need to hear all about it. You're amplifying Black and brown founders who have beauty products. I went down a rabbit hole on your YouTube last night, learning a bunch of self-care tips, but I have to know about how you started this company, what it looked like raising money. Can you kind of give me like the landscape, how you came up with the idea, and take me back to the beginning?
Yes, I would love to. And I'm so happy to be here with you. I've missed your face, and I'm just so proud of everything that you've built and all you're contributing to the collective. So, when you met me, I was deep in beauty founder world. I created Nyakio Beauty, as really an homage to my family, because I felt that the sophistication of Africa was really missing in premium beauty. So I created that brand. Back in the day, they called it an all natural brand. That was before we termed, clean beauty. But it's always, it's never been a trend to me. It's all I knew. My grandfather was a medicine man. My grandmother was a coffee farmer. So I knew about the restorative power of extracting oils from nature and using ingredients that come from the earth to treat the skin and to treat ailments. Because even though I was raised here in the States, I had the opportunity to go back to Kenya and learn these beauty secrets, as well as having my mom, who just consistently used those practices on my skin and our wellness and the way we ate. So, I decided to turn that into a brand 20 years ago, because I felt that it was important to celebrate, these rich ingredients from Africa. And entrepreneurial life, as you well know, it has its ups, its downs, its challenges. It stops and it starts. But, ultimately, Nyakio was purchased by Unilever back in 2017 and was able to launch into Target in January of 2020. So right before we shut down for the global pandemic. And, it had launched online at Target. Then March 2020 happened to the world. And at the height of, this new way of living and surviving, we also were dealing with the pandemic, which is systemic racism and the racial reckoning that was happening here in this country, but really felt globally. And I found myself on all of those lists: Nyakio Beauty, the brand, myself, Nyakio, and, top Black owned to shop, to follow. And while it was wonderful to receive those honors and those accolades and to see, the sales of Nyakio, skyrocketing at Target, it was built on the precipice of this very hard time. And a few things happened to me in that moment. One, I couldn't believe, I would be on lists that had 100 founders, 400 founders, 1,000 founders. And as someone who at that point had been in the industry for 18 years, I couldn't believe how many of these incredible, non-toxic, beautiful brands with these rich founder stories I'd never heard of before. And we were seeing these great initiatives like the 15% pledge and Pull Up for Change, and incredible initiatives also coming out of the summer of 2020. But in my mind, and in my co-founder of 13 Lune's mind, we thought, gosh, it shouldn't be that hard to get to a certain amount of beautiful Black-owned beauty products to shelf, because here's a list of 1 million. And so I too would go down a rabbit hole of their Instagrams and their websites and start reaching out to them and forming friendships through DM. And then it was at that point that my co-founder Patrick and I thought, let's create something of our own. Let's take our own pledge. We wanted to debunk the myth that Black and brown people only make products for Black and brown people. For 18 years previous to 13 Lune, I'd been making products for people of all skin tones, and we deserve a bigger piece of the pie. So we took our own pledge, which is our 90-10 rule, and 90% of all the brands we carry at 13 Lune are created by people of color who create products for everyone. And 10% are dedicated to allyship, because we wanted to honor brands that before 2020, even though they're not Black or brown owned, had long thought about serving all in their formulations and in their businesses, in front of the scenes, behind the scenes. So we launched with a handful of great ally brands, and then 13 Black owned brands. And now we have 140 brands 16 months later, and signed a giant retail partnership.
Oh my goodness. I have to say, like, just the aggregation of those brands, that's kind of how I felt in the middle of the pandemic when everyone was championing Black and brown owned brands that I hadn't heard of so many of them. And the fact that you're bringing it all together, it's like, it's when you think about, okay, I'm going to go search for a beauty brand, I'll jump on Sephora.com because they have all these new beauty brands coming out, but it was never to champion women of color. And it was never, and so it's so helpful because like you, I was rabbit holing like, okay, this is one person's own little site. And now I'm going to find out like, how am I going to get it? And so to bring it all together. And I think you make a good point. Like there is this stigma that Black owned companies are for the Black community only. And your brand was one of the first brands. I mean, we met, I'm trying to remember when that spa event was, maybe 2014 or 2015. Yeah. It was a really long time ago. We've been friends for so long. And I got samples of that in my spa bag, my goodie bag. And it was, I mean, and you've sent me some, like the most beautiful and luxurious oil-based products with all these phytochemicals and antioxidants. And so how is 13 Lune breaking down the stigma that these brands are for everyone? And how are you educating the community?
You know, it's so funny because as a Black woman who, you know, launched a premium skincare brand back in 2002, I've never quite understood the stigma. You know, I've been using products made by people who don't look like me my whole life, and they work on my skin and my hair, and they should, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I think about systemic racism, it's really just steeped in that. To look at someone and assume that they can't serve you because they're more melanin rich it's just an old paradigm. And so, you know, at the core of 13 Lune, our goal is to help build generational wealth in Black and brown communities, and to show, you know, what you see you do, and to show the next generation of beauty founders that they can do it too. You know, the only way we're going to combat systemic racism in this country is by having a level playing field and allowing others to catapult to success based on their talent, based on what they're outputting to the world. And so I think that 13 Lune just helps everybody to make their beauty shopping more meaningful. And, you know, while we have great big brands like Goop and Olaplex, and also some bigger BIPOC brands like Butter, et cetera, you know, we are just a truly inclusive retail platform that's now opening 600 stores within JCPenney. And it's just an opportunity for us to serve a consumer that's been underserved for far too long, to give an opportunity to founders that so deserve it, to get to national shelf space, to have the visibility that they have on 13lune.com. But also, beauty is universal. We all love beauty. Who doesn't love lipstick, right? Yeah. And it's just a way to connect us all. We've lived in such divisive, frenetic, stressful, horrific times over the last few years. And those of us that have been lucky enough to survive it all deserve some peace and happiness and good beauty products and connectivity and a place that you can go and feel seen. We all want to be seen and heard. And 13 Lune is here to see everyone and to serve everyone. And so while there's great platforms that are, you know, Black for Black and circulating Black dollars and brown for brown, et cetera, 13 Lune really is a place of discovery and a chance to learn global beauty secrets. You know, we have brands from East Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, the UK, France, Australia, Chile. You know, it's not just about Black people in America, although we have some incredible Black-owned American brands. It's about connecting us all in a place that is grounded in beautiful beauty products and beautiful stories.
Absolutely. I love giving these companies a level playing field, and also just being able to share your mission and 13 Lune's mission just with my audience, because you're giving us a platform to go search. I'm sure you've had these amazing stories with brands that you've championed that are now really successful. Okay. And that goal of creating generational wealth is Are there any personal stories from brands that you've brought into
There's so many
13 Lune that you're like so proud of, and you're like, you guys, this is such a secret product, and this company's work has such an amazing story, and you have to go try it.
Gosh, I know. Let me think. I mean, I often tell this story. So she was one of our original 13 brands. Her name is CC Meadows, and she has this incredible, first of all the brands at 13 Lune are non-toxic and made with good for you ingredients, rich founder stories, etc. But this founder specifically, CC Meadows, she has a company called Prados Beauty, and she is Chicana and Native American. She's a mom. She was in the military. She's 4 kids. She started her beauty brand based on inspiration from her Native American culture and her palettes. I mean, when you see her palettes, her highlighters, her colors, like they're just so rich and beautiful. And she started her company out of her baby's nursery. That was the only place she had to work. And she built this incredibly beautiful makeup brand that we brought to 13 Lune. And over time, it's only been 16 months, this brand has catapulted to success. And when we brought, we opened our first 13 Lune at JCPenney stores last fall. And when we launched her brand into one of our first stores in Whittier, California, it was the first time a Native American founded makeup brand has ever been brought to a national shelf, which to me is also so perplexing. We're in the United States of America. The Native American culture, literally has given us so much and has had so much taken from them. And to think that this talented woman would have never otherwise, or to this point had not gotten the opportunity to bring her insanely gorgeous palettes to market. And, she's such a special being. She has served this country. She's such an inspirational mother. She comes from such a place of joy. And she dreams her packaging and then works with this very talented Native American famous artist named Stephen Paul Judd to bring the imagery to life. So when you look at her palettes, it's her dreams realized. And then you open it and you've got this like insanely gorgeous, like turquoise eyeshadow and pinks and golds. And it's so fun because I love it at almost 49 as much as my 16-year-old daughter, and all her friends love it. And people buy into people before they buy into products. So yes, all the products we carry are insanely amazing. It's a place of discovery, super efficacious, but it's the people behind these brands that make these brands so, so, so deeply special and so deserving of success.
Oh, so our brands, I'm sure you're looking for these types of brands, and brands are coming to you. If a founder is listening and wants to be featured or, be a brand on 13 Lune, how does that process work?
Yeah, so we do. We have a lot of inbound now, which is really exciting because it means that more and more people are learning about 13 Lune, and we have an incredible buying team. We are a small but mighty team, but it's growing. We're a company born in 2020 on Zoom.
Yeah.
And while we have an LA office, most of our team doesn't live in LA. And so we were really lucky that the first hire key hire that we had was our key merchant and our buyer, and her name is Janelle, and she's a Black woman who helped build beauty at Net-a-Porter. So when we talk about curation and the gift of curation, this woman has that just in her DNA. And so the best way to have your brand considered is to email brands, plural, at 13 Lune, 13 spelled out, Lune, like the moon in French.com. And then it will go to our buying team, and they will do the research and ask for samples. And sometimes brands aren't quite ready for to come to the site or to come into stores but what we love is the discovery of these brands early on, and then to, as a team, give them feedback in ways that maybe the brand will be ready or speak to them about what it is that we're specifically looking for and curating and where our highest penetration is. And, I was so blessed to have so many mentors along my path, and as challenging as it's been at times to be a Black female beauty founder, if it wasn't for my mentors, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I believe that, being a mentor, finding mentors are equally as important. And it's so crucial that we as humans lend a hand and help others reach their success. And so I love the mentorship aspect that's built in naturally in our culture at 13 Lune, whether it comes to how to raise money, how to get your brand to shelf, how to survive once you get your brand to shelf, what sort of support do you need? These are all lessons that I've learned over the last 20 years of my career. And I've had a lot of fall down moments, but it's in the getting up moments that I feel like I've gotten the greatest gift, which is the ability to share my experience and help others who will make their own mistakes, not make the mistakes that I've made.
Oh, well, you're paying it forward, because I'm sure so many of these beauty founders are really the creative type, and they like to, they're not necessarily versed in how do I raise money? What happens if I have a raw material or ingredient that goes out of stock, or I can't, access it, and then it puts a bottleneck on my production. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about your experience, because you started this company in the midst of a pandemic. There was systemic racism everywhere. And as a Black female founder, raised a boatload of money to start this amazing company. So can we talk about that process and what it looks like to raise money as a Black female founder?
Yeah. I've been doing it on and off for 20 years and it definitely looks a lot different now than it did, back when I was 27 and idealistic. And I was really lucky that I had the naivete to not even know what the stats are. I think that knowing that Black women raise less than 0.002% of venture capital and yet start the most businesses in America. I was just recently named the 94th Black woman ever to raise more than $1 million, which, the accolades and then the congratulations are obviously humble and welcoming, but I also am shocked that there has only been 93 before me and it's 2022. So I'd say the first thing is just don't get deterred by the stats. Know your audience. The venture community is slowly but surely changing. In my journey with Nyakio Beauty in the early days, I never met much less a Black or brown person, a female venture fund,
Yeah.
And so the fact that with our last round for 13 Lune, that it was led by a venture fund that was all Black women was progress, right? And going back to my earlier point of what you see, you do, there needs to be more people of color and women in venture, because the stats for women, Black or brown or not, are still pretty horrific, but it's growing and it's changing. And I always come from a place of hope that I truly, truly believe that everything that we have all been through over the past few years is truly a testament to a paradigm shift. And old paradigms go down fighting, but new paradigms are more fun to build. So I do believe that, when it comes to venture and it comes to raising, you have to be mindful that, there is still a lot of old paradigm stuff happening, but it's not your job to break it down. It's just your job to start a new one, to continue towards a place of, inclusivity and equality. And when I look at our kids and what the world's going to look like, my daughter's going to vote in the next election. She'll be spending her own money on her clothes and beauty choices and her wellness in the next couple of years. And so that's what gives me hope. That's what the world's going to look like. And so if you're still stuck in the old paradigm way of doing business, that you're operating from a place of fear that, it all has to be a way that, white and male and blah, blah, blah. And that's not going to work, because the world's just not going to look like that in before we know it. And so, from a business perspective, it's just a bad business idea to only invest in those, because then you won't have any customers to serve. They will be moving elsewhere. So I think that when it comes to this situation, I feel so grateful that I've had a little bit more ease in raising for 13 Lune, but I think it's just timing is everything. And it was divine timing that we all, as a collective, had a chance to just sort of stop and watch and observe and see how we could all do better with the time we have here on Earth.
Your timing was perfect, but it's also, like you said, it's the younger generations feeling so connected to our purchasing. And I would say that maybe I'm on the top end of that generation, but just even looking at all the young women that I serve and that I work with as a nutritionist or as a mentor and coach as well, it's like we are making decisions from our pocketbook. It's voting. It's every decision is a vote for inclusivity, or it's a vote for clean beauty, or it's a vote for like pure nutrients that are amazing for your skin. So it's nice to see it's nice to see it changing. And you think about it for venture capital, like for people to have these large,
there's so much
boatloads of money,
Yeah.
to have boatloads of money and to say like, to start to see, even our friend Emma on the Shark Tank, and like to see diversity start to happen in that space, and to see women, being listed on lists as multimillionaires and taking their income and reinvesting in young women who have great ideas is going to take a while for us all to have this opportunity. But I love that 13 Lune was, that you raised in a Black female founded venture fund. Like you're creating that generational change, and we're seeing that. I mean, I'm just so impressed, and I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy for this brand, because it's a way for all of us to really make those choices. Absolutely. With our purchases.
Right. Yeah. And, with Fearless Fund, that's the fund that led our round. Such an amazing impact that they are making, for women of color and people of color owned businesses. But, allyship is also very, very important. It is not our fight to fight alone, and I'm just as grateful for the investors that don't look like me, that were the first to write checks and come to the table. I mean, my partner is a white male. On this,
I know Patrick.
inclusivity bandwagon, but has long before 13 Lune been a true ally to me as a friend. And so allyship just feels good. I love being an ally to my friends and my colleagues, and when we think about communities that really desperately need allyship in order to make this world a safer and more beautiful place, it feels good to do good. And you can build a profitable business that's also mission focused at the same time. That obviously, because you've been in this wellness space for so long, before it was trending, I was here last night, and it was everybody kind of going around at this extremely beautiful, healthy Whole Foods dinner, talking about, cleanse versus eating healthy, and what is a cleanse and what's a reset. And, and I think, gosh, our conversations are so different than they were even just a decade ago, sitting around with a bunch of women at a fashion dinner. Right. But I love it because it really is stemming from a place of holistic mind, body, and soul space, that regardless of how unsure and sad the world looks right now, I think we're all really holding tight to what we can control, which is being a better contributor to just making the world better. And so while observing, massive heartbreak all over the world, I think it's what's keeping us sane.
Right. It definitely is. And I would say, like, I love even just you being able to like share 13 Lune here with the Be Well by Kelly community, because we love clean beauty, and I want to know your favorites so that we can get to the site and and start making just purchases that make us feel good.
Absolutely. So I would definitely suggest, as I said, that any of the makeup products by Prados. From a makeup perspective, I really love Citizen, and it's CTZN, a line started by 3 Pakistani sisters that live in Dubai and London, who sort of defied what nude is. People used to think that nude went from pale pink to peach, and even people who don't have melanin-rich skin may have more melanin in their lips. And they've literally created a brand where everybody can find their nude. It's so inclusive, and it's named after really fun cities. Ironically, I wear Los Angeles and Sarajevo because it's pigmented, but everybody loves it. And it comes in this dual set where you've got lipstick on one end and then lip gloss on the other, and you can mix and match. So Citizen Cosmetics for sure. I'm a huge fan of vitamin C serum. It's so good for you. It helps with discoloration and obviously hydration, but it's also really good at helping your sunscreen to work better. And so we have some great vitamin C serums, one by Butter, by Dorian Renault. We have another one by Beauty Stat, Ron Robinson, who is a Black chemist who has this patented technology, and that's gone TikTok viral crazy. We have great men's brands like Ceylon, hair care brands by Vernon Francois, celebrity hairstylist, makes hair care for all, Bomba curls. I'm very into scalp care, and it's something that, like, I know for my generation, we would constantly, overwash our hair or dry out our hair. And so you start to see in your 30s and 40s, especially after children, my generation experiences a lot of hair loss, and scalp care, for our kids' generation and beyond is really huge. So we have this amazing brand called Jazz and Kicks that has this incredible scalp scrub for all hair types. And it's just really about treating your scalp once a week so that you can maintain growth and help to lessen hair loss, as well as when you start young, taking care of your scalp, it's going to make for a better head of hair. So I love all the education around it. We have some incredible bath and body brands. We have a Mississippi mud mask by Mary Louise, which is just the greatest mud mask. And then some of our ally brands, Dr. Barbara Sturm, Goop, Olaplex. We've got some really fun big brands launching this fall when we open our next 300 stores at 13 Lune at JCP. So lots of good stuff. 140 plus brands to check out. And what I also love about the site, very much like a Violet Grey or a Goop, it's very content led. And so we have incredible stories, stories that really speak about the times, founder picks, staff picks, celebrity picks. We have an incredible beauty vanguard that I know you're a part of. So yeah, check out 13 Lune.
We definitely will. And I'll put the brands that you mentioned in the show notes so people can snag those products directly as well. Can we talk about this amazing collaboration and your presence in JCPenney and what that relationship first looked like and how you just decided to work with JCPenney and what your vision is for I guess you can call it retail, like a real store. Yeah, everything's online. Store. Everything's online nowadays, and everyone shops there.
Retail is not dead. I never bought it, not even when the malls were closed. I was like, retail's a place of community. I mean, I'm one of those people that loves to shop alone, but I just love to wander and observe and discover. And especially when it comes to skincare and makeup and fragrance, it's such a, while we do extremely well telling the story of the brands and describing the brands, et cetera, there's just nothing like an in real life experience. So we always knew that 13 Lune would become a full omni-channel brand and have a physical presence. But 90 days after we launched, literally, we got a call saying, JCPenney wants to meet with you. JCPenney had, obviously gone through, some tough times in the latter years, leading up to COVID, but then were privately bought and now privately held and having their amazing rebirth. And, it's America's oldest retailer. It's over 115 years old. And, James, I know so much about James Cash Penney now because I've just been doing so much research on who is this man that 115 years ago had the wherewithal. And imagine what the times were like back then. And to go into rural communities where most people would be afraid to open a large department store thinking that they wouldn't get the profitability, or showing up in Black and brown communities with department stores during a time where we were dealing with segregation, right? And because he built JCPenney on the golden rule, which is treat others how you want to be treated. And so he was definitely ahead of his time. Growing up in Oklahoma, JCPenney was the only place that sold my mom's, foundation shade with, the cosmetic lines at that time. And, as everybody's sort of doing these kind of store-in-store retail concepts, Sephora has had an extremely successful business within JCP. But when they contacted us, they were really dedicated to finding a retailer that was hyper-focused on hyper-inclusion. It's so important that we see ourselves reflected on shelf, and beyond a product offering, being able to highlight all of our founders at shelf. Their pictures are there, their stories are there, both are, Black and brown and ally brands. There's an instant connectivity because a consumer, a staff member, can look at that shelf and see themselves reflected, which is, I think, why 13 Lune is having such a great success in these first 10 doors at inside the new. And it's kind of this new, really reimagined JCPenney beauty space. And then 13 Lune is a store-in-store within JCP Beauty. And I think, the reception has been overwhelmingly wonderful, but I think it's because, when I get to go into the stores, I constantly hear, thank you for doing this for us. And it's not just from Black or brown people, right? It's like bringing some of these undiscovered brands to rural communities that may not have one of the other major retailers in their neighborhood, but they're getting to see Wander Beauty. Oh, that's another one. The Wander Beauty eye patches I wore on the plane. They're a miracle saver. But Visha Beauty, doctor brands that they hadn't discovered before, by people of color, by allies, by people who have their shades. It's just a really heartwarming experience. And it's just also a huge opportunity. People keep telling us, we're disrupting the beauty industry in a positive way. And I never did this to be a disruptor. I just did this to be more inclusive. And that was our goal, is just help more people feel like they belong in the beauty space, especially brown and Black people who spend the most on beauty, so.
Right. You're a mentor and a megaphone. I love that. You're
a beauty founder. It's so funny because I've been so focused on e-tail and retail, obviously for the past year, rightfully so, but I'm definitely itching to get back to
Nyakio Beauty.
Nyakio Beauty is now owned by
Unilever,
but yeah, I have other ideas, other projects on the horizon. So.
Oh, that's so exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, keep us posted on
We'll be the first to know
what's to come for your second beauty baby. I'm sure that will be featured on 13 Lune and shared with everyone. Yeah, it's interesting because when you're on, you have to love the internet for its ability for people to have a little bit of an even playing ground. But when you start to look at like ads, like large businesses that then all of a sudden they're making a bunch of money and then they are able to spend a bunch of money on marketing and ads, and then they're all you see in your feed. How do little brands break through without a platform? Like they can't. Like it's actually virtually impossible. And that's a really big proponent.
I've had many sleepless nights as a beauty founder, heartbreaking nights. Access to capital, hands down, has always been my biggest struggle. I mean, while I'm so proud of taking my business from my apartment at 27 to a national conglomerate, in my 40s, it shouldn't have taken me that long, but so much of my business had to stop so I could go find capital to take it to the next level. And then even when I would get the big opportunities and I would think, oh my gosh, I've made it into this, national space, I would get there and realize I can't afford to be here. I can't afford the marketing. I can't compete. I can't thrive. I can't survive. And that's heartbreaking when you have to walk away from one of the biggest opportunities of your life and you've built your business to get somewhere, just to realize when you get there, you can't afford to be there. And the inequity in that, right? And so that's why it is this full circle moment of, why investors, there need to be more investors that are women and people of color so that they can then recognize, from their own lens, it's all cyclical. And so one of the things that we work really, really hard at 13 Lune is that, yes, we're a business. This is not a charity. We are here to build a very successful business. But I need to be able to know that my founders can sleep at night and that they're protected and that we may take less on the bottom line in order to help amplify and celebrate and elevate them. And that is our commitment to them. And what we're seeing is that by helping our founders, by not having to come on and pay us all sorts of marketing dollars to be on the platform, et cetera, focusing on their inventory, focusing on their innovation, figuring out how to grow their teams, figuring out how to finance their POs, et cetera, et cetera. We're freeing up so much of their head and heart space to just focus on growing that they're going to end up being more successful than they would have otherwise, right? So it really is, you said it earlier, it's like in paying it forward, we're actually building to a greater success in our business. And my partner says that all the time. You can have extremely profitable business and do good in the world at the same time. And I think at this point, anybody that's building a business, if you don't have some sort of mission to better the collective, it doesn't even have to be like an out loud philanthropic mission, but just a mission about, even if you're opening a pizza shop, what are you putting on that pizza? Where are you sourcing those ingredients from? What neighborhood are you going into? Who are you serving? What are you doing during times of strife and hard times in the world? I just don't think it's possible to have a successful business anymore if you're not thinking about how to better serve others.
Said it earlier, we're thinking more holistically about our purchases, about how we take care of ourselves, about how we show up for our communities. Mm-hmm. And you're the perfect example of someone doing that. My little mentor megaphone.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so wild. It's so wild. And honestly, I am so grateful for every fall down, heartbreak, tear, starting over, relaunching. I can't even remember how many launches I've had for Nyakio Beauty over the years, but I'm so grateful for it now because I know now that I'm actually living in my purpose. I say all the time, I'm almost 49 years old and I finally figured out what I want to be when I grow up, because when I was just so focused on this brand and this brand and this brand's success, I didn't even realize all that I was downloading and experiencing to share with the world to help others get to success quicker. And so, yeah, I never knew that I would actually sit in a place of gratitude for having my heart broken or being taken advantage of or any of those things that have happened to me in business, because it's what got me to where I am today. So also to know that those fall down moments, usually for anybody listening, that's maybe in one, getting back on the bike is the greatest success. And it usually leads you down a path to a better existence. So just stay the course.
I love that. Is there, for the founders that are listening or people who have a business idea, is there a story from when you were starting Nyakio Beauty where you fell down and you thought you weren't going to be able to get back up?
Mm-hmm, several. But one that comes to mind is, when I had the brand as an independent brand, when I first started out, I launched it Fred Siegel in LA and Jeffrey, New York. And I had built, the business to 180 boutiques on my own out of my apartment in my 20s with my roommates helping me pack boxes, my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time, coming over every night and packing my grandmother's coffee scrub and loading them up in my truck and driving them to UPS because it was cheaper than getting a UPS pickup, all of the things that we do, running out of inventory when you get a press hit, all of those things. And there was one moment, and Nyakio had really sort of, found its stride and the business was growing, but it was still really just me working there. I had some outsourcing, for accounting and things like that. But the products ended up being on the Ellen DeGeneres show, 12 Days of Christmas. And then Oprah, when she had her show, the Oprah Winfrey Show, had an episode where she had her friends bring her their favorite things. I knew about the Ellen show because we had to ship, a bunch of product to the audience. I found out about the Oprah show days before it happened. So there was so-and-so is bringing, your coffee scrub and your candles onto and I was like, oh, I don't have any, I actually don't have any of that left. It's Christmas time. I've sold out. I'm trying to find the capital to make some more. And anyway, the episodes ended up airing within 2 days of each other. And there was that moment of like, oh my gosh, I've arrived. I'm on Ellen and Oprah in the same week. And then there was the panic to the nth degree. It crashed my tiny little website that I'm not even sure was built properly. I was back ordered so many units. So many people were ordering these as Christmas gifts or holiday gifts. And there was no way they were going to receive them in time. Credit cards are being run. It was a disaster. And it was so sad. Because you would think in a moment like that, it would be easy for me to pick up the phone to an investor and say, I need XYZ dollars today to make this inventory. But I wasn't even getting return phone calls from investors at that point in my life or emails. And so I had to make this really difficult decision to give a lot of money back and shut the business down. And I shut it down for 2 years after that, where my story was, I'm going to go out and try to raise financing, but I just had a baby. I was nursing. We had bought our first home. I'm now technically unemployed. It was really, really, really difficult. And I, used the talent that I had learned, the mistakes that I had made to help others, not make them. People starting candle lines or t-shirt lines. And, I would kind of consult and help friends, figure out how they could start businesses. And then that would bring in a little money, but it was still just so heartbreaking because I missed my brand. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I had a very kismet conversation with someone who said, oh, someone at the company that launched Laura Mercier, created Laura Mercier, is a huge fan of your brand. And I mentioned that I knew you. And she said, I can't find that coffee scrub anywhere. And he ended up making an introduction. And that ended up being how I was able to bring Nyakio back into the market, was partnering with that group and learning so much and getting Laura Mercier as a mentor and all of the mentors that I met within that company. And even though I ultimately left there and went on to join another portfolio, it was, kind of the greatest mistake that could have ever happened, because it took me then to a place where I could surround myself with people who knew better about how to run a business and how to deal with inventory and what manufacturers to use. And so, yeah, it was a huge fall down moment. I have a trigger to the word failure because we don't tell our kids they're failures when they fall off the bike. That's why I always get back up moments. And so, yeah, I fell off the bike a few times and got back up, but it always led me to a better place. And it also led me to a place that I can now help others to understand when maybe saying no to a big opportunity might be better. Maybe we can do this later or whatever, just making sure you're prepared so you don't have those crash moments.
Oh, such great advice. And I can't believe that perfect storm, Ellen DeGeneres and the Oprah Winfrey Show in the same week. And I can empathize with getting orders that you don't have the inventory to support, and wanting the growth, but needing to grow it at the pace that you can afford is stressful in its own right, because you want to run as a founder. You want to run and you want to sell as many units as humanly possible. And that can sometimes be even bigger problems. And so unless you have all of your ducks in a row, from finances to mentors to like a website that can handle it, it can be
right. And I mean, obviously now with COVID and supply chain issues, I talk to our brands about this all the time, that especially when you're manufacturing a consumer product good, manufacturing is prioritized based on, unless you have really tight relationships with your manufacturers, it's very hard to get to the front of the line when you're a small brand. And it's very hard to, especially when you're dealing with retailers, to make promises, or even your consumers on your own sites, that you're going to have something back in stock and not to be able to deliver is really, really stressful. And now we've got this added element of stress that so much of our supply and manufacturing comes from places that it's been hard to retrieve. But I think just through all of it, it's also about just understanding that you're not alone. Everybody has supply chain issues right now, even the big companies, right? And to find manufacturers, if you are in CPG, that you can nurture true relationships with. Because even when I was a tiny brand and the manufacturers I worked with made huge brands, because I had formed friendships and relationships with them, they were more apt to prioritize, at a time when I needed it most. And so I'm grateful for those relationships as well.
That's great advice. Oh, Nyakio, thank you so much for coming on the show, for talking about your journey. And I wish that Nyakio Beauty was purchased long before, but I really look back and think about you getting back up on the bike. And I don't know that 13 Lune would be here without all of those ups and downs, the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. And you definitely are where you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to do when you grow up. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. And it's so great to see you. And congrats to you, honey. I'm so grateful for the community that you've built, for my Fab Five, for all the things, your beautiful babies. And it's just lovely to get to see your face. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be here and have you here, and just to learn more about your mission. So I will put all the links in the show notes. Where can people follow along? Where can they follow along with 13 Lune, with you, and learn more?
you can follow us at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at 13 Lune. And it's 13 spelled out and then Lune. And then you can follow me personally at Nyakio, Nyakio. And you can hear more about 13 Lune at our podcast called The Beauty Vanguard, wherever you get your podcasts.
Great. Well, we'll do links to everything and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at bewellbykelly.com and follow me on Instagram at bewellbykelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.